The passion, the energy, the power, the spirit of hardcore.
About 2 days ago, I had a dinner with a friend, and I was telling him something, and I said, "Oh, I told you I went to university in America, right?" And he says, "No, you didn't." And I said, "But you were in my talk in 2019." And he says, "That was 5 years ago." So I realized I should probably do a recap. And as this is part 2, and if you don't have part 1, a lot of it just won't make sense. So yeah, in 2019, I spoke here at the Hackers Congress. A lot of people would have thought I'd talk about something around cryptocurrency, privacy, or something around the sort. I had lunch with Pavel, and he just said, "No, I think it would be good for you to just complain about all of the problems that you've ever had for 50 minutes. And I thought, yeah, that sounds great. I love complaining. Do I have to provide solutions? Not really. Good, even better. So I was born in the Philippines. I left the Philippines because I just wasn't very happy over there. It's not for me. I don't hate the Philippines. I'm not anti-Filipino in any way. If you go to the Philippines and have a great time, great job. I hope you do. And if you'd like to go there, feel free to reach out to me for tips and stuff like that. But yeah, I just didn't feel at home over there. I couldn't be myself. I did leave because I wanted to have a better life. I did have a good life while I was there. But yeah, just wanted to be more like myself. I went to study in the United States, but before that, I had a lot of problems getting there. So I'm just going to fast forward through a lot of this. Getting a US visa as a Filipino is very difficult. I was privileged that I even had a tourist visa, so I actually visited America when I was 9 years old. And to give you an idea, imagine this auditorium times 5. That is the size of the initial welcoming area of the US Embassy in the Philippines, where everybody trying to apply for a visa has to go to. You might have a 10 a.m. appointment, but that's along with about 1,000 other people. After waiting for about 1 to 2 hours, you get sent over to a different room, about 2 times the size of this. There's some initial screening. You have to give up all of your fingerprints, hand over a lot of documents. No questions yet. And then in this second room, you wait for your name to be called, and you go up to a counter, and they ask you, finally, the interview questions. I was assigned to a guy who had a crack in the window because I think somebody punched it. After that, if you get approved, you get sent into the third room where you hand over your passport. You provide your address so that they'll mail you the passport with a visa. That room could sit 15 people. Next to me, while I was with my father, because I was underage at the time, he says, "Hey, that guy on your left," in our local language, the one who's crying, that guy's a former governor. He was crying because he was finally happy that he'd be able to visit his daughter after about 20 years of her having to just come back to the Philippines to see him. That's how hard it is as a Philippine citizen to get a US visa. While I was studying in the United States, I had a lot of nice things. For the first time in my life, I was able to go out and hang out with friends in a safe environment. The Philippines is safe, but I had some weird circumstances. Being a weird person, I wanted to study abroad while I was already studying abroad. I actually saved money by going to Austria. All of the other students in the program were American. They all just flew to Austria, flew back, no problem. I needed to apply for a student visa. I had to fly to Los Angeles. I was in Seattle, Washington. Fly to Los Angeles, same day return, just to apply for a student visa. I didn't actually know I needed to fly because it wasn't clear, and I just mailed in my visa application. In the reply that they gave me, they actually also said, "Oh, you want to arrive 1 week before your program starts. You need to apply for a tourist visa as well, which is another $100. So I had to pay $200 for 2 separate visas just because I wanted to arrive 1 week early. Again, because I'm crazy, I wanted to study abroad once again. This actually was a great way to save money because US tuition is very expensive. I decided to go to the United Kingdom. It was a much easier process. I didn't need to fly anywhere. There was like some kind of station in Seattle, so I could just go there, hand over all of the documents and so forth. But on the way to the UK, I had a very interesting encounter. So as a Philippine citizen, I might need a visa just to go through an international terminal. I don't mean go outside the airport. I mean just literally go in the international terminal to get onto my next flight outside of that country. The Schengen area is one of those places. So I transited through Charles de Gaulle because I flew Air France, and there's a lot of problems with Charles de Gaulle. So even if I had a 2-hour layover, I just barely made my flight. Right as I'm on the bridge, almost right in front of the plane, I hear somebody running down and screaming, "Stop," and then yelling my name. She arrives in front of me and asks me, "Show me your passport." I give her my passport. She asks, "Where are you going?" "United Kingdom." "Do you have proof that you'll go there?" "Yes, here's my acceptance at the university there. Here's my rental contract for a dormitory." And then she said, "Okay, how will you go back?" It's like, "This is my ticket to go back, and this is my US visa." "Okay, where will you stay in the United States?" "Here's my contract." And this continued on, and she just kept asking over and over again. I had everything ready because I knew what I was going to be asked or what I could potentially be asked. I even had bank statements, and yeah, she asked for all of that. And I think the only thing I didn't have was a birth certificate and I even had a police clearance on there. And she got mad and she just tossed me my passport back and she walked away because I think she wanted to try to make problems that day. In the UK, yeah, not much issue. Went back to America. And unfortunately, I could not immigrate to the United States. I wanted to at the time. In the United States, again, I'm not sure how much the law has changed, but at the time when I was living there, I was a student and I was allowed a 1-year work permit after. I applied to this a small company called Amazon, and they had this new project at the time called AWS. And I applied for a job. I got promoted during the interview call, and they took me in for a proper interview. It was the whole gauntlet interview with 5 people. 5 people didn't show up. It was less, but it was still 5 hours. I passed really well, and they even said we're not going to interview more people. I was very happy about that. They kept delaying giving me the proper job offer until around Christmas time, and I wrote, what's going on? I'm, by the way, allowed 1-year work permit, no sponsorship needed. They just need to say, yeah, we'll hire him. That's fine. And they told me, yeah, we can't hire you because HR decided not to hire Filipinos. And that's when I learned that in the United States, it's illegal to discriminate by race, creed, or any of the stuff that they like to say. But it is legal to discriminate by citizenship. And so they did. That was very devastating for me because essentially it told me, Travin, no matter how good you can be, no matter how good you are, you can be promoted at the interview, you'll be given a job that they're not even going to talk to anybody else about, but you're Filipino and you're never going to make it. Or at least it'll be very, very hard. And it turned out to be very, very hard. There were a lot of issues around that because according to US immigration at the time, for you to get a working visa, your job needed to have the degree that you have, regardless if you got it in the United States or elsewhere. And that decision was not made by the employer. It was made by the US government. And at the time I was working in web marketing, that was still very new at the time. And so the US government said, well, you must have an engineering degree for that and a business degree at the same time. I did not have both. So I couldn't make it. I decided to go back to Austria. I actually remember waking up one day and saying, my adventure's not over yet. And boy, was I wrong. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more adventure to go. So I decided to try to go back to Austria. Actually, there was a long process around that, but I'll cut that short. Basically, that was the best option for me. If I didn't want to go back to the Philippines, just go back to school. I still did work in America for 1 year for another small company, and they supported me by giving me a job as I was going around. So I went to Austria, but before going there, because the time to get a residence permit in Austria was so long, it takes 5 months to get the residence permit. And after getting the residence permit, I have to apply for the visa because though I have the right to go to stay in the country, I don't have the right to enter the country. So I have to apply for a different thing. Yes, that makes sense apparently. So I decided to go to Fiji because I looked at all of the countries that I, as a Filipino, could go to for at least 4 months or around 4 months with no visa. And my choices were, it was Cape Verde, Fiji, and Paraguay, not Paraguay, sorry. Somewhere in South America, I forgot now which one. I'll remember later. I said, oh, well, I'm going to go to Africa and South America at some point, so I'll go to Fiji. I've never been to South America yet. I've been to Africa once. I've been to the Pacific Islands many times. So I decided to go to Fiji. It was very easy to go there. It was so easy, in fact, that I'm never going to forget this. I made a friend on the flight. He was an American. We got off the flight at the same time, and we both went to an immigration desk at the same time. The Fijian asked me, how long will you stay here? I said 118 days, because the limit was 120. And he says, oh, bula, stamped it. Bula means hello and welcome. I got passed through immigration before the American. That is one of the proudest moments of my life. Because actually going through Austria, when I first came to Austria, I went through Germany. 5 people went through before I got to go through. And the person was even confused as to why I had 2 visas. I also had very long hair, so I guess I looked a bit suspicious at the time. So I did plan to go to Austria, but I needed to go back to the Philippines for a while. I was only supposed to be there a month, but unfortunately, in Austria, the Austrian embassy lost my birth certificate, even if I mailed it with FedEx. It's full tracking and everything. And they didn't tell me. It wasn't until 5.5 months after, and I said, hey, it's been that long. I had to call them because they don't respond to emails. And my German is not that good, so I tried my best, and they pretty much said, oh, we never received your birth certificate. And I said, well, I can send one again. It'll take about a month. Will you continue the process? And they said, nope, the whole process will start again from the beginning. The 5 months hasn't even started. And so I had to delay everything by 1 year. There were a lot of problems over there, and actually even a year after, when I finally got everything sorted, my application for the student visa apparently got into the pile of the refugee applications. So it wasn't touched for a long time. It took me complaining on Reddit. I forgot which exact subreddit. It was either the Austrian one or the Vienna one. And a lawyer volunteered his time to help me out. I was already almost broke at this time. And yeah, he was able to help me out. I think I only paid him a total of 200 euros for about 40 hours of his time, and him going to the immigration office 5 times. So though this talk is about a lot of complaints about how things are broken, it's also to highlight there are some good people there, and there are some people who are acknowledging that the system is broken and are trying to fix it. Unfortunately, a few months into going to Austria, I got bankrupt. And so the company that I was working for went bankrupt, and so I also then went bankrupt. I have no support from family or anything like that. And so or not anymore by this time. And so I decided I need to find another place to go to. I did consider going back to Fiji, but I wanted to stay around Europe. I tried to get sponsorship. I couldn't get there. And so I said, well, I already booked this trip up to, no, that is the flag of Norway, but I had never lived in Norway. Instead, I lived right up there. It's called Svalbard, or Spitsbergen, depending on who you talk to. Yes, it's very cold. Yeah, that's very, very cold. At the time when I was there, so I went there on vacation and I found a job there, went back there and decided to live there. Because at the time, you were allowed to live there as long as you could survive. It was actually very hard to live there. So this photo, so let's start with this photo. Yeah, let's start with this photo. I'm kind of smiling there. About 10 seconds later, so I'm on a snowmobile trip with a friend. That thing behind me, that's a rifle with exploding bullets, because that's the only thing that can stop a polar bear. And you need 3 of those bullets around the neck of the polar bear in order to actually kill them. And they run at about, well, really fast. And 30 meters away, you have about 5 seconds to kill them. 10 seconds after this photo was taken, my friend says, there's a problem with this snow scooter. and we were stuck there for about 30 minutes. And so I, with my rifle, had to go around 360 degrees, just scanning and making sure there was no polar bear around us, because yes, there's snow everywhere. It's hard to see them. Actually, on the right, I'm outside the polar bear protection zone. Behind me is a restaurant that I used to work at, and the freezer was outside. And because we're outside the polar bear protection zone, we also had a rifle in the restaurant. And that was my job, to get the food with the polar bear protection rifle. But yeah, it was a nice place. You don't need a visa. You just need to survive. It was hard. 4 months of no sunlight. 4 months of no sunlight. I don't mean like the thing that Norwegians, Swedes, and Finns like to say, like, oh yeah, sometimes around midnight you still see a glimpse of the light. No. The sun is up in the sky like it's noon for about 2 months of the year. And then also the other 4 months, of course, is pitch black darkness. I actually was planning to move to Spain. I only wanted to stay in Svalbard for about 2 to 3 months. A friend of mine used to own a recording studio in Spain. It's defunct, no longer operational. And I said, hey, can I buy it? I'll pay the transfer fee and I'll self-sponsor myself. So I was only supposed to stay in Svalbard for 2 to 3 months and then move to Spain. This law firm that I was working with, it's called Cabray Law Firm. I don't mind mentioning their name because they screwed me over, so fuck them. They said, this is the amount that we need, and that's all that you'll pay, and we'll sort out the visa for you. Perfect. Paid the amount. After I paid, they said, you need to deposit an additional 20,000 euros because that's required. I did not have that at the time. I already booked my flights. I already canceled my apartment contract. I actually broke down, and I had to cancel everything. I paid with a credit card, not with crypto, so I was actually able to get the money back. Turns out they screw over a lot of clients anyway, so it took 3 months where I had a lot less money than I'd like to admit, but didn't end up moving to Spain. So I stayed in Svalbard quite a bit longer, which is nice because then it gave me time to go check out an ice cave. So it's a nice thing to do while you're up there, by the way, if you get the chance. Yes, you go through that hole. It's really small and you drop down really deep. In the talk 5 years ago, I just said, like, yeah, I tried to move to the Czech Republic. I did move here. I lived here for about 2.5 years. And it was interesting because I had to go to Sweden, in the Czech embassy in Sweden, to apply because the Czech embassy in Norway couldn't handle the application. And because Sweden's in the Schengen area, I needed a visa to go apply for a visa. Yes. Actually, the Svalbard Immigration City Hall office, every time I showed up at the office, they looked at me and said, visa? And I said, yes, once again. The people working there were friends of mine, so it's okay. And they knew the problems that I had. I want to highlight that actually with the Czech embassy in Sweden because they were so nice. I shut down the entire consular section for about 3 hours. It was very easy for them to actually get frustrated about this, but they were so happy because I guess it's a bit boring over there. The fingerprint machines didn't work because my fingers were frozen or something. They were like, the system is rejecting his residence number because it's 4 digits. There's only 1,500 something people who live in Svalbard. So you only need 4 digits. And of course the system didn't appreciate it. But yeah, they quite liked it. And I really appreciate the situations where it's very difficult, but the people in that situation do their job and don't give you shit for it. So these 2 people who were working at the embassy of the Czech Republic in Sweden in 2017, really great job to them. And then I decided to move to Switzerland because I decided to move to Switzerland already before I moved to the Czech Republic because I met the Department of Economic Promotion in this canton called Zug. It's like a state in Switzerland. And for the first time in my life, I felt valued. So after having a meeting with them, they said, Travin, we really like you. We like what you know. We like what you know. We like what you've done. We like what you are about to do. We want you to move here. And I said, just so you know, I sound a little bit American, but I'm Filipino. And as he's packing his stuff, he doesn't even look up. He says, doesn't matter. It's the first time in my life that somebody says, it doesn't matter that you're Filipino. It's okay. Well, other than Fiji, me entering. When I tried to move to America, I've had lawyers tell me, just say, do you have a girlfriend you can just marry? Or in many other places, they're fine with taking me until they find out I'm Filipino, because it's actually much harder. So for example, student visa to Austria, I wasn't the only international student. There were some people, of course, around Europe, but also from places like Korea. And all they did was fly to Austria, go to the immigration office, pick up the residence card. I had to do the 6 months process. I gave some recommendations at the time. Even if I wasn't required to, just have clarity on requirements. Actually, when I went to the Austrian embassy in the Philippines for the second try, there were additional requirements that were not published online. And I had to argue with them that I'm not required to give it. I didn't argue too hard. I'll explain further why later. But basically, I said, there's no way for me to get document Y without having document X. And I already giving you document Y. Document X is in your system. And they made an exception for me then, so I appreciate that from them. Clear merit-based system. Back then, I recommended the Canadian immigration system as a model. I'm not saying that it has to be a copy-paste of that model, but one thing that's nice over there is that I did look into moving into Canada, and I didn't qualify. And so I didn't waste my time. And I knew that if I did want to go, these are the things that I need to do in order to be able to go in. And so that is just really beneficial for people like me in terms of figuring out where to go, whether it's worth our time or not, whether something is achievable or not, and what we need to do in order to get there. Existing or previous visa or residence permit recognition is something that's actually already being done. I'd like to see more of it. So for example, I can actually visit Canada now without a Canadian visa. I actually couldn't visit Canada before, even if I wanted to, because the system didn't recognize Svalbard. And so I couldn't finish the visa application, and the Canadian embassy just said, don't go. So I didn't go. So getting more of this would be quite good, because obviously if somebody's, for example, a resident here in the Schengen area, maybe having them go through the full process for a visa in Ireland or the United Kingdom is not that required. More on that later. And so that's the end of the recap. There's one thing perhaps that's very clear. I didn't complain about anything in the Czech Republic at the time. And that's because at the time I was going through a lot of immigration problems here. I didn't want to risk that there was somebody from the immigration office listening to my talk and then trying to screw over my application, because a lot of that has happened. Like I said, I lived here for about 2.5 years. I had 10 visas and 1 residence permit during that time. One of those visas was valid for one of those years. So yes, 9 + 1 was for the rest 1.5 years. Because there's this thing called a bridging visa, where while your application is going through some kind of process, you can go back to the immigration office in Żukovskiego, which is the number 3 destination in my Uber app whenever I'm in the Czech Republic, and go there and apply for the visa and hope that they give it to you, and hope that they do it properly, because sometimes they don't. So for example, can anybody tell me what's wrong with this? Yeah, somebody forgot that Halloween existed. So I went to the immigration office with my friend, who's a lawyer, and my visa expired October 30, and they printed one November 1st. I pointed out the problem when they gave me back my passport, because they ask you, like, does everything look okay? I said, no, it doesn't look okay. You forgot October 31. And she said, I'm not reprinting your visa. And I tried to argue, but then my friend said, nope, we go. It wasn't supposed to be a problem until I went into Germany and my passport was checked. Yes, I get checked even if I go through the border. But I did go through the UK, so that was one reason why they had to check me. And they said, this is a problem. And so they said, oh, can you buy a ticket to Turkey for that one day? I need a visa for Turkey. So they said, well, I have a valid visa for the UK at the time, because I already applied for a tourist visa. Said, okay, buy a ticket to London, now. I couldn't enter until I did. I guess it wouldn't have been a problem if I just stayed here, but because I got caught with that, I did need to buy a last-minute round-trip ticket to London, which cost me about 700 euros. And I lost a business opportunity because I was supposed to have a very important meeting in the evening of October 30th. So lots of problems associated with just one mistake by somebody forgetting Halloween. they're required to give you anywhere between, well, not required, but they're recommended to give you anywhere between a 1 to 3 month visa based on your travel plans. I had a lot of travel. I was doing a lot of consulting at the time. And sometimes I would have a good person and they'd give me 2 months or 3 months, and even one very good person who gave me 3.5 because it was over Christmas and he didn't want me to go back in between Christmas and New Year. He seemed like a new person. He wasn't yet destroyed by the system from a moral perspective. There was one person who just said, "Oh, yeah, you can come back here. You're back here for 2 days. You come back here during those 2 days." So they only gave me a 1 month visa. And that's why one time I had to go to the immigration office directly from the airport. And because my flight was late, I had to pay the airport taxi, which was very expensive. I was actually denied the renewal, the extension of my residence permit, sorry. A bit of backstory with this. So I did make a mistake. I will own up to that mistake. I forgot to extend my self-employment registration. But they did say, no problem, just make a new one again. And I did make a new one. And they said, okay, here's your provisionary one. We'll give you the final one after you get your residence permit. Okay, that's perfect. That's how it was actually before. I took that to the immigration office and then extended after the 1 year permit to get the 2-year residence card. That process took a long time, and eventually we actually went back to the immigration office with my friend who's a lawyer to follow up on the visa application because we just wanted to see if all of the documents were there. I'm cutting the story a little bit short, but there's a lot of times that they just say, oh, we need this document. I give the document, and they say, oh, we need it again, we lost it. I have no choice. I just have to go get the document again, go travel there again, give it. And they said, while we were there to follow up, he gets a ping on his mobile device. He's assigned as my lawyer. So he gets a notification and it says, we are aware that to get the residence permit, you must need the final business registration. But in order to get the final registration, you do need the residence permit first. Regardless of this, we are denying him the residence permit because of the lack of the final business application. And so he must leave the Czech Republic in 15 days, which actually means leave Europe in 15 days because I don't have a visa for the EU. I've never seen him mad. That was the first time and only time I've seen him mad. And he actually demanded a piece of paper and wrote an appeal right there to prevent me from essentially being kicked out of the Czech Republic. This goes back to a little bit about clarity on requirements and limits. Actually, this would have worked against me if it was that clear, because I actually heard that there was a rumor at the time that self-employment visas for third country nationals was to be discontinued, and so they were slowly pushing it down to be rejected always in the future and to find ways to make rejections. It worked for me that they weren't that explicit about it, so my lawyer was actually able to, and my friend was able to argue for me. But I don't know how many other people were in the system at the time waiting to come to the Czech Republic and then getting some sort of very vague reason why they couldn't come or couldn't stay. So I'm very fortunate that I had a friend, a capable one. Actually, also thanks to Pavel here for introducing me to another friend who helped me out even further. So thank you very much for that. There was another problem with hotel check-in. Actually, I checked in the hotel I'm staying at today here with another friend. Hello. And he was a bit surprised because I gave my passport. And after I gave my passport, the receptionist says, "Where's your visa?" And I showed my residence permit, no hesitation. And he was a bit confused as to why that was necessary. So here in the Czech Republic, anybody checking in a hotel, if they are a third country national, though I don't know about EU citizens, but at least third country nationals, they must always enter the in the immigration system, their visa status and other information with regards to the visa and residence permit card. I was still living in the Czech Republic, but I was going back and forth to Switzerland a lot because my then girlfriend, now wife, was living there. She's Swiss. And there was some change in schedule and I just needed to be back in the Czech Republic. But my landlord asked me if she could use the apartment for her family. And I said yes already. So I said, that's fine. No need to change anything. I'll just go stay in a hotel. As I checked in, The receptionist says, "But you live here." And I said, "Yeah, but there's a problem in my apartment. I can't stay, so I stay in a hotel." I was checking in on a Sunday, and she says, "Okay, well, I need to report this to the immigration authorities. I don't know if they will come here tomorrow to take you." She was actually quite apologetic about it. She was explaining, I think there was a bit of a language barrier, but I didn't sense that she was actually mad at me or trying to screw me over. She was actually a little bit concerned, but she said, "I don't know what they will do if they see this. They will see this as suspicious." I couldn't sleep very well that night. I woke up at 8 a.m. and I just stared at my door and waited for somebody to knock. They never came, so that's good, but yeah, these things unfortunately happen. Last one is like there's the Schengen rule. So I had already decided to move to Switzerland. I was already doing the process there, and actually somewhere in between I got married, so I could easily just move. But I couldn't even get the residence permit in Switzerland because I was still having the problems here in the Czech Republic. So it actually got delayed for about half a year before I could even move there. So it's actually funny, once I got the Czech residency, I immediately went to the Swiss office and I said, "It's fixed, I can get the Swiss residence card," and then they gave it to me within a few days. So in Switzerland, it's also a very merit-based system. As long as you check the boxes, you can go. I mean, for people who are EU citizens here, you can go probably a lot easier. Of course, it was easier for me because I was marrying a Swiss person in Switzerland, and yeah, it was just very straightforward. It was like 3 pages. So the problems didn't end there as I moved to Switzerland, although it was very emotional for me once I got the Swiss residence card. It would be short-lived, but I was very happy at the time. Going to the UK, I still needed a visa. I think I've talked a lot about visa applications, but I haven't really shown you how heavy it can be. These are the additional documents. This is not even the actual application. These are additional documents that I've been required to submit for a 6-month tourist visa to the United Kingdom. Total is about 100-something pages of documents. The financial evidence, that's all my bank statements. A bunch of the other includes, I'm not even sure. Oh yeah, that includes also my marriage documents, which they required me to provide. Because as a Filipino, it's not just about, will you be okay here when you come here? It's, will you go back and not illegally immigrate here? So I have to make sure that I show that. This was also in the middle of Brexit, so it was a lot of unclarity. Oh, and funny thing, I don't know if you can see the dates there, but these were all submitted on February 15th, 2020. Yes, just before the lockdowns. And so I paid £300 for a 6-month tourist visa that I never got to use. They also charged me £5 for a phone call where they answered none of my questions, by the way. It was really nice of them. It would have been really nice if they just recognized my previous visas to the United Kingdom. I already had a tourist visa. I had a student visa. I didn't break any laws during that time, or at least they didn't get, I don't think I broke anything. And I just think that the system should be a lot easier once you've already proven that, and I don't need to go through all of this again. Like, actually, one of the other documents is my university record in London, which they should already have, but they required me to submit it again. Actually, as Mario said, I wasn't supposed to come here, so because this is the last Hackers Congress, I decided to come back. I'm actually flying to Oceania on Monday, and starting tomorrow, I'm going to be adjusting my sleep clock so I minimize jet lag by the time I arrive. So I'm going to Australia on Monday via Singapore. I need a visa for Australia, even if I'm just there for 2 days. Luckily, there's this thing called a transit visa, so I don't have to pay the 200 Australian dollar fee. It's not probably clear, so I'll just read it out. Provide evidence of past travel. This should be a certified copy of all of the pages of your current passport showing all entry and exit stamps from other countries. Also provide a certified copy of all pages of your expired passport if available. That's for 2 days, maximum 3. Getting a certified copy means going to a lawyer, having them certify all of the pages, and uploading them. In case you didn't know, Switzerland's very expensive. I would have to pay the lawyer's certification fee plus their hourly rate. Luckily, I have a friend, so she would only charge me the certification fee. I called them, and I said, look, this is a little bit unreasonable. And they said, oh, that's okay. You can just upload it. You don't have to get it certified. Like, okay. Then it's just an annoying process. But again, clarity on entry and requirements and limits. It was not clear online. Apparently, this was an old requirement that they just never bothered updating. So, should be updated. New Zealand. So this is actually a previous trip. Some of my wife's family is in New Zealand, and I've transited through New Zealand, but I never got outside because I need a visa to go outside of the airport. Luckily, I didn't need a visa to just go in the airport, transiting to the Pacific Islands. I applied for my visa well before my trip, but for some reason, I wasn't getting anything from it. And it turns out it's because more than 3,000 visas were stuck in the process. So apparently there was some issue with their development operations. Front end didn't talk to back end. Back end kept the requirement for a COVID immunization record. Front end removed it. And so all of the applications were stuck in needs more documents. But front end actually showed it as everything submitted. So I actually only got my visa 1 week before the flight. It was actually quite painful because I thought I would be spending Christmas and New Year's alone, while my whole family was in New Zealand. All of them are Swiss, so they just went there and complained about the electronic travel authorization, which was about 10% of the price that I paid. Again, existing previous visa recognition. I think that because I was a resident of Switzerland, I'd been to the UK, studied in the UK, lived in the United States, had a US visa, would have been nice if they treated me, or at least had me in a fast-track process. Because again, one of the main things that they look at when a Filipino is applying for a visa is, will you go home? Will you not illegally immigrate? And I think I've shown that. 2021, there were a lot of issues around the world. I had some changes as well on my side. I unfortunately went through a separation for a short period of time, for about a year. During that time, I was very depressed, not just because of the separation, but because I was actually probably needing to leave Switzerland. And I thought, I've lived in so many places, something always goes wrong. This whole idea of going to somewhere, staying there for a long time, getting citizenship, I've failed so many times. I have to do something different. And so I took a loan. And I became St. Lucian. So now I'm a Caribbean citizen as well in front of you. I was looking between St. Lucia, Dominica, and Antigua. I picked St. Lucia because, well, it was the cheapest among the other ones, but for those three it's the same price. But it was a place that that looked like I actually want to do business there at some point in the future in terms of physical businesses, not tech. The world opened up to me when I got the passport. I remember when I got the email from my lawyer. So I didn't work with any international organization that assists with this. I just worked with a local lawyer. He said, yeah, Travin, I can submit the documents for you, but you have to do all of the applications, everything else yourself. And I said, oh, I've done this before. I literally just spent 120 pages on a UK visa I didn't use. So this is fine. When it arrived as well, I was keeping this bottle of vintage ale back when I could still drink a lot more alcohol. It didn't taste that good. That was the worst part of my passport and citizenship document arriving. I didn't even want to finish the beer, but it was a very emotional thing. I couldn't even actually cry because something felt different. The world just felt more accessible. I felt like I could finally just go places and not have to think. I mean, some people make fun of me of planning so far in advance, and part of it is a privilege now because I've had a lot of time in my life, as you saw, where there was a lot of uncertainty and I couldn't plan in advance. But also because I had to, because I needed 6 months to apply for a visa, 9 months as a buffer. Now I can just say like, hey, I can even just go to the UK if I wanted to. this is the comparison between the Philippines and St. Lucia. Ignore the blue ones because they're not actually that accurate. But that's 93 visa-free countries versus 35. Actually, in 2019, that number was just 30, which is, for context, about the same strength as the Cuban passport. So, yeah, it's a shitty passport. I know for most people here, the St. Lucia passport is probably a downgrade, but for me, it was a massive upgrade. I get to go to 3 times more countries and just show up. It's not something that I'm used to. I still need an e-visa for Turkey. It's the first country I went to with my St. Lucia passport. But I tried to do a parallel system with the Philippine passport and the St. Lucia passport. With the Philippine passport, I would have needed to upload bank statements, my marriage certificate, so many other things. Pay a higher fee. With the St. Lucia one was name, date of birth, passport expiry, when do you arrive, when do you want to leave, pay $20 here. I paid, and then I screamed. And my wife said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I got approved for an e-visa the moment I clicked pay." That's never happened in my life. It was the same thing with Qatar. I had a long layover there and I just needed an e-visa. And with St. Lucia, it was really fast. It's also about $20. That one took 1 day. But I know that for many of you here, that sounds like such a normal thing. And actually, no, for you guys, it's probably an inconvenience because you're probably used to just going somewhere. I'm not saying like in everywhere, but in many places for you to just go somewhere. For me, this is an upgrade to my life that I can just do that on my phone or online and it comes almost instantaneously for a very low fee. And even if it was free to apply for a visa, I still need to go to the embassy. I went to London as well last year, and it was a very emotional one, actually, because I transited through Amsterdam, and they look at the St. Lucian passport. Now, one of the benefits of having the St. Lucia passport is also that nobody knows what a St. Lucian really looks like. So when they see this, and I say, "I'm St. Lucian," they don't question it. Of course, Caribbean people would know, but actually one Colombian guy from the Caribbean part of Colombia, I told him I was St. Lucian, and he believed me. So but I've seen St. Lucians, I've met St. Lucians, I don't look like them at all. But yeah, I was going to the UK, and I gave my St. Lucia passport, and the person was going through, and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to look through this because I've never seen this passport before." And I said, "Yeah, it's fine. And he says, "Do you have a visa?" And I paused, and I said, "I don't need one." And when I said that, I almost cried. Because I just said, I don't need a visa to the UK. And he believed me. One of the problems with the St. Lucia passport is not SL on the abbreviated as LC. So it took him a while to find it. But yeah, I actually just did it again a few 2 months ago when I went to Northern Ireland. They asked the same thing, "Where's your visa?" And I just said, "I don't need one." And to be able to say that to a country that I need a visa for before. Sorry, I'll take questions later. Yeah, it's very significant for me. Also, in terms of doing business, like I mentioned earlier, I lost a business opportunity because I had to travel. There were a lot of other similar cases. So during my time as a consultant, I was an independent consultant. I would every now and then get offers for a contract to do a 1-2 week workshop or something in the UK. And it was impossible for me to go because I couldn't get a visa in time because it takes at least 1 month. I'm opening a restaurant, hopefully, in Belfast starting next year. And it's just fantastic that I can just fly back and forth now whenever I need to. And actually in December, I'm going there and I'm flying back, and the flight schedule didn't work out well for me. So even if I am a Swiss resident, I have to use the slow non-EU line. And 1 hour transit in Frankfurt or Amsterdam is just not enough. And I said, well, I could fly from Ireland. And yeah, I just did a train. I'm going to go take a train to the Republic and fly out of Dublin. I wouldn't be able to do that with the Philippine passport alone because I need a separate visa for the Republic of Ireland, which also takes about a month. So some thoughts around all of this. One, I take things in a more trade-off manner, and you should, and you probably already do. You know, a lot of times, especially in the theme around this conference about privacy, we're all probably have it inside of us like, why are you asking? Why do you need to know that? But a lot of times in the situations that I've had to face, like that time in Paris, I have to just think, who has the power here? It's not me. I'm not in my country. What are rights here are actually for me privileges. If I choose not to obey, I go back. I will be sent back. I know that I do respect people who stand up for what they believe in, their morals, principles, and philosophies. But just keep in mind, it might not work out in that one situation for you. So yeah, sometimes be a bit pragmatic. I hope to someday be in a situation where I can complain. Somebody was telling me about a situation where they were going through immigration and they were being asked documents while entering the EU as Swiss citizens, entering the UK as Swiss citizens. And one of them actually has told the immigration person, said like, why would I move here? I'm from a richer country. Yeah, I can't say that. I couldn't have done it alone. Like I said, Pavel was big help, and a lot of other people, massive help, even just from an emotional perspective. A lot of people like to talk to me about stuff in Svalbard, about the weather, dog sledding, polar bears, and all of that. But for me, what I really remember the most in Svalbard are the people there who helped me out. I was really financially constrained over there. Some people actually literally saved my life from a fire. And there was this one guy, his name is Neno. We used to work in a greenhouse. Every Saturday he'd call me and he would just say, hey bro, you awake? It's like 5 a.m. And I said, yeah, I'm working. And he said, okay bro, I got some leftovers. And he came to my apartment with just a bag full of leftovers, which is actually food that he cooked from the restaurant because he knew that I didn't have much food during that time. My salary was €1,500. My rent was €1,100. So I didn't have much. And yeah, a lot of those people just took care of me without making me feel bad about it. And so for that, I'm very thankful. In addition to all of the immigration related stuff, unfortunately, one of them couldn't be here today, but I had lunch with him a while ago. He was the one who, filed the appeal for me on the spot as I was about to be kicked out of Europe and given a 15-day window. And it's a balancing act with privacy and immigration. Again, going back to the theme of this conference, I know that we want to try to keep a lot of things private, and I think we should as much as we can, especially in relation to whatever threat models that we each as individuals have. But unfortunately, when it comes to going to countries, and especially if you're moving somewhere, and especially if you have a Philippine passport like myself, and even the St. Lucian one, it's nowhere near as strong as for most of you here in this room, thankfully for you guys. Having no record at all is very bad. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you have so much information there about me, but it's because it's information that I either want you to know, information I don't care about, or information that I think immigration would actually appreciate. And so I actually cite my LinkedIn profile a lot of times whenever I apply for a visa. I think that, it's just unfortunately it's not a privilege that people from my country have. Whenever we go somewhere else, I don't even think about it, handing my visa over, showing my residence permit card, giving my fingerprints, because for us that's like, if you want to actually go there, you have to do this. We have a choice of not going there, but then we have to go back to what we don't like. So going back through my old recommendations, one, again, clarity on requirements and limits, a lot of situations where that would have been very helpful. And also for people so that they can choose whether or not it's worth it for them. I totally respect people not going to a place because they don't want to give that country their information. That's okay. But it's very bad if you show up in the country and it's not clear. Clear merit-based system, again, so that it's easier for people to figure out, is it achievable or not, and what do I need to do? And existing visa and residence permit stuff. Some additional recommendations based on my recent experiences. One is, again, clarity in information requirements. So this goes back to if you go somewhere, have it be clear that X, Y, and Z will be requested of you. Somebody actually in a Telegram group, I'm very thankful for a lot of people sending me a lot of content and stuff. It's like, hey, Travin, you might want to include this in your talk. And so I thought I'd include this part. It was something, I think, in Thailand where they will track, the hotels you stay in and so forth. And my actual initial reaction, was, okay. Because that's already what is asked of me in many countries that I go to. Of course, but that's bad for a lot of people if you only find that out when you show up. I know about that before I go. Second one, enable a point system. I think that, again, this goes back to the merit one, but actually makes it like clear points, like, hey, I can go for this, I can go for that. I think that after somebody gets a certain amount of points, maybe things should be a lot easier. Like, oh, I've had residence permits in these countries. I'm clearly not, going to overstay or do anything illegal. So, be open about discrimination. This goes back also to number 2, but I would have much rather discrimination be clear. Like if they say, oh, if you have a Philippine passport, minus 50. I'd rather that be on the application rather than I find out later that they will treat me worse. In America, they already have it. So for example, if you are a Philippine passport holder, you have an H-1B work visa, you try to get a green card, you have to wait 5 years because in the green card system in America, it discriminates by citizenship, by what citizenship you have when you apply. So if you're not one of the top applicants, so if you're not Filipino or Indian or Chinese, you don't have a 5-year wait time. Your green card starts processing soon, or maybe 1 year later. But unfortunately for us, we'd have to wait longer. But again, I just like this to be clear, straight up from the beginning. If you think that there's too many Filipinos in your country, just say that. And last time I didn't give enough time for questions, so this time I decided to try to speed things up and opening up for questions, comments.
Thank you so much, Travin. Thank you. Oh, it was great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's amazing, and what you had to go through and inspire us. Congrats to the passport, man. Like it's incredible. It's life changing. Like it's crazy to think that something which would be even what you said downgrade for like privileged Europeans as us is so life changing for you. You actually didn't leave much space for questions, man.
Oh, shoot, sorry.
We are actually a bit over, but maybe one question. Let's do. Yeah, we have one.
Sorry.
Hey, so regarding your point system you mentioned in your last slide.
Yeah.
If you were a dual passport holder, let's say you had your Filipino was negative 50 points.
Yeah.
And let's say Malaysian was negative 30 points.
Right.
Would you think the two negatives would make a positive, or do you think they cancel each other out, or which? Do you think? You know what I mean? How would you score that up in your own opinion?
Well, I would hope that my St. Lucia would be a plus rather than a minus in that case, but. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to declare all the passports you have in multiple visa applications that I've gone through. So, I've had some visa applications where I didn't need to declare that I had 2 passports, but I should because it's actually beneficial. So my Swiss residency is connected to my Philippine passport. So in that situation, it would be a net positive. But no, in that scenario, they should just say, nope, if you have 2 shitty passports that we don't like, double negative. In 2 separate ways, doesn't cancel out. Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. We have next talk in 3 minutes, so we gotta wrap it up here. But thank you so much, Trevor.
Sorry.